Welcome to Desk Session 103, Carl DeGregorio's Desk Session 103. It is I, Carl DeGregorio. Welcome. What an exciting time, kind of, in a way. Things I have to steal against and fighting a way to come up with a theme this week, or like I said, what's going to be past the century mark for this, and what tweaks do I make? Where does it evolve? Etc., etc. But as I say that, and as I almost internally feel the rev of an engine, my RPMs going up, and while it's probably not the best way to get magnetic attraction, or it's probably not the best way to draw eyes or draw attention, I have to check that impulse. And I think that's part of what I can only speak for myself, but I know it's societally that there is an anxiety crisis or a loneliness crisis. Which one is it, right? It's either anxiety or it's loneliness. Loneliness would be the low energy emotion, and anxiety would be the high energy emotion. And I think just the fact that I made it to 100 and now I'm on 103, which should be progress and something to feel good about, using the grid, the matrix, whatever, the metrics to feel one way or another about something I started to do with very little notion of it getting anywhere. Your own standards. That's really what it comes down to. Your own standards, your own measurements. But already the anxiety is like, what's next? What's after 103? And that's fair if I approach it open-mindedly, and if I have a commitment to sharing something different. Obviously, it's a vlog, so it's week to week. Things transpire. But for me, I guess, it is built into our culture. I did a rewatch of Mad Men, and while that really it's very scant on true advertising philosophy, although it has some of that. It's really a treatise of mid-century style and male depression and the patriarchy being as toxic as it can be, and about a one man's depression, and basically the ultimate sales job or advertising or change in narrative was that he changed his identity, right? But essentially, some and all, if not, the idea of built-in obsolescence is to create that ache of FOMO, that ache of I need what I just bought a Buick, and then in the 1964 Buick, the headlights are cooler looking, but everything else is the same. It's how companies and products, that's how they, how much more do you need out of a phone, So how do they sell you the feeling of, I don't have enough. And I guess I have to deprogram or fight through that in my own, like, for example, I'm using a camera on the laptop, not a webcam. So while it's cool that Apple figured out a way to build it in instead of that weird orb thing we used to have, fish eyeball, and it doesn't record at 1040, or 1080. Sorry, I don't even know. What I'm saying is my engine is what's next. How do I not stay stuck in the mud? And one of the cool things about having that busy week, last week and the weeks before, and shooting that film and being excited about it, is that I'm doing this back to my regular day. And so the opposite of like what's next is also to get back to the routine that you have set up for yourself, that high productive weeks or things when things get crammed in. you get to enjoy that too. You get to enjoy settling back into recording on the day you always record, rather than, wow, I waited till the day before I released it last week because I was wiped out from being on set for 2 days, right? So there's those rewards too, sort of the reward or relief of, kind of getting back to getting back to your thing. And the big lesson I learned is just where my level of stamina and fitness is. I don't know where I read this, but Laurence Olivier, who I guess before Marlon Brando and simultaneously with Marlon Brando, and even back then we had this notion of the GOAT. We just didn't have the acronym for the greatest of all time. Laurence Olivier for a long time was considered the best actor alive, right? At least certainly from the British perspective. And for a while Brando and him were Brando was a different animal altogether, but Laurence Olivier was considered a top flight star and actor of stage. And he was a famous Hamlet. His Hamlet was definitive, they've said. He did all the great roles. He was Heathcliff in the original Wuthering Heights, so that was sort of his nod to box office. He was in Marathon Man in the end of his career, where he tempered down that stagey performance, so he was adaptable. But for a while, like we've said, he was considered the best. And they asked him what was the main ingredient, the sort of one word thing, the thing that you need the most of, and he said stamina. And I understand that finally now. I always did. And when you're young, stamina is almost a given. Stamina is when you have energy to burn. I was an energy to burn guy. I was hyperactive. I needed to be corralled. I had ants in my pants. During rehearsals, I was bouncing around. I just had energy to burn, and I would then funnel it for performance. But now I still have that revved up motor in terms of hyperactivity. I just have less physical. I can't say it just takes that more out of me. So let me say that. I was about to go into a whole thing about what I do or don't have. And so when now that I know that stamina is energy and stamina for, and he didn't have to elaborate, stamina for the things that you have to do sometimes, especially when a script is just the starting point. The script, for example, might have said, Jane walks in to see her husband packing, but not finished packing. She then says, "What the hell are you still doing here? I'm just about to leave. I thought you were coming home later," he says. She says, "Get the fuck out now." He slams, and this is the script, so he slams his suitcase shut or zips it up and heads for the door. She encourages him by pushing him, and it becomes a tug of war because he's taking her good suitcase. So they start having a tug of war with the suitcase. That's all in the script. But when you get to the set, you got to figure out how to do that. And maybe the first couple passes, it doesn't look right because you've never done it before, and it has to be worked out. And that whole cross and getting pushed and push and pull, that's energy on top of the lines, on top of what else you've shot that day. And so that's where I need the stamina. And we were doing things where we were on an exterior and I was running up a hill, and I haven't run a lot since I hurt my foot. And anyway, it worked out, but I was wiped out. And so I now know sort of what I'm in the gym for is always for longevity, for mobility, for maybe some aesthetics, just to feel better, a place to go, part of my former muscle memory of being a gym rat back in the day. All of those, good things and reasons why. Look at that, I'm sweating already. I have to turn the AC up. All of those incredible things are what you get from the gym. But now I'm I could see where I was on crutches in a boot to now I'm able to run up a hill. I need more of that physical ability to be present as a physical actor. I'm also, by Hollywood standards, not by any WWE or not by any NBA or NFL standards, I'm a large guy. I'm over 6 feet tall, and I have a 200-pound number in my weight class. So I'm bigger than a lot of actors, stature-wise. And so that while I am not particularly an intimidating person, I will wind up playing people whose physical presence is part of the package of why they've used me. And so I have to reflect that with what I'm able to do. And as I get older, obviously, it'll just be mere intimidation, and I'll have, but I want to prolong my abilities. And for the thing most important to me, which is quality of life and being a flexible, physically available actor. And when I was working in the restaurant industry, you're burning a lot of energy, and your body is suffering, and you have to keep energy up for that. And then I'd have none left. And so getting sort of onto what 103 and what's different and what's new, and how not to make it about anxiety, but make it more about excitement and a plan and a routine. And these pillars of the last, let's just say quarter, I don't know, I'd have to go back, but let's just say 3 to 4 month period where things were lined up. So one being the photos. Getting ready for that was no small thing. Having that reading at a college, and then this short film shoot, SAG film. All of that are the sort of 3 big pillars, and a lot of them were sort of happening simultaneously. Also, while, barely hanging on domestically with house duties, living a life, living a gym, seeing my girlfriend, all of those things, you have to, I guess how they say, spin plates, juggle, whatever it might be. But there was an urge, not an urge, but a tendency of mine to fixate. And so I couldn't fucking focus on anything, but I had to, right? Because as I'm getting ready for photos, the director wanted to rehearse. As I'm getting ready for photos, I got the call about the reading and all of this. Then I had to take the photos. Then I had to do the reading. I had to prepare for the reading. I've had auditions. All of this is plenty of things to do, plenty of work. And dare I say, how I had seen in my mind's eye in college what the life of an actor was and what the work of an actor was all of that. And one of them was a job out of all that stuff that you have to do. And so what do you and the fantasy. So I guess the good news is I am living the life I want. And what a fucking hard thing that is to say previously, I will say, because if you're worried, if you're neurotic, if you have a notion of having to earn it, or I don't know what the hell, that's a hard thing to say, because to admit it, I don't know. I'm sure maybe you don't relate, because most people don't function on that afraid to say good things. But that is sort of a thing I'm working through. So currently my anxiety is more excitement for what now, what next. Wow, I really thought that, to be honest with you, I thought the film was going to be a tad bit onerous. I don't know how to put it in sort of neutral terms, but you just don't know what the set environment's going to be like. You don't know. There was a lot of I don't want to say there were a lot of false starts. It was always going to be a 2-day shoot, and I think there were at least three different, hey, are you available this 2 days? Are you available? And I think that happened a minimum 3 times over a 6-month period. And each time I said yeah, and you almost kind of felt like a loser, because every time it got pushed, you didn't have anything to conflict with it. I think the only time I pushed back was I said I got something to do on my birthday, and I had to shoot my headshots. Those were the only things that were hard dates he couldn't book me. But there was a lot of pre-production stuff, and in the indie sphere, that is a luxury the director tended to lean on, which was the availability of the actor, access to the actor, And I was kind of getting revved up, because you get a little stop and start, you get a little miffed about false starts, and so I had maybe a tad bit of apprehension and maybe a tiny bit of tension about how this thing was going to shape up, and that maybe it so I was pleasantly surprised that not only it wasn't something to survive, it wound up being immediately from the minute I hit the set and saw the seriousness of the crew, the arrival. It was just it was a professional thing, and to be honest with you, I had to correct, you know what I'm saying? I had to correct a little bit of that dragon ass thing. And there was someone on the set that reminded me when I was getting a little tuned up about having to do another take, and it was getting a little, someone looked at me and said, it's better than working 9 to 5. And that really was it was true. And so, I have to remember that, because you will fight. There was that really interesting actor who was in Somebody Somewhere, Hiller, last name Hiller, I think is his name. I can't remember his first name. Very good actor, very interesting presence. He broke out on this HBO show, Somebody Somewhere, which I auditioned for, but did not get. But is it Jeff Hiller? I think it's Jeff Hiller. He is making the rounds because after he did Somebody Somewhere and was sort of hired by a friend, finally getting his break, he then went on to do American Horror Story. He went on to, now he's on another big kind of hit, Widow's Bay, and he's finally, he's got such a great perspective. If you've seen him, he's making the rounds on podcasts and such. And he'd say that, it got to be, and I guess this was him judging himself before it really came through, and I related so deeply. He said it gets really embarrassing to be 40 and doing an improv show at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. People are like, what the fuck? And you're really doing that to yourself. And I've experienced that, being 40 something and doing stand up in a bar in Riverside on a fucking weekday, like a Thursday night, and driving all the way to Riverside to see the Tom Cruise Top Gun house. That was more fun than the actual gig. It gets to be, and when I have these horrible sort of fits of self-abuse, self-pity, maybe, I've had the conversation what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck, am I doing? And you start to say it's really unbecoming. It's not dignified. It's not, and he was saying that. And then as he was saying that, he then said, but you know what? I had to push through it. I get to do it. I'm doing what I want to do. I've always said, I have to remember this is a ride that I volunteered to get on, and I can get off any time. And so I can't really take the pose of woe is me about my choices, right? That is hopefully where your resilience and your efforts and your affirmations and your prayers, all the stuff, whatever it is you got to do, that has to be baked in the cake. And I got a few years on this Hiller guy. But I know that I feel in my bones that this is the first time I've been able to sort of, there was a tiny window after I graduated where all it was for a few months, maybe 6 months, was, hey, you got an audition. This is back before emails and stuff. Hey, you got an audition. Come get the script. It's here. And I was, going all over town, and I didn't, I was still at home after college. I didn't need a job right away. And I got a commercial. It was like, wow, this is the life. Not that this is the life I made it, but this is the life. This is what the life looks like. There's a lot of ups and downs, but there is a through line of I'm going to make a commercial. I'm going to audition for cool stuff. Oh, I'm going to Lincoln Center. Oh, cool. It was looking good. And then, of course, an inevitable. But I also, I took a setback very, very hard. And I need to remember that I got through that, and that today is a new day. And that if you're not interested in, I have some sides on a desk for an indie film that I got to put a tape together, and it's not from your agent. It's self-submit. I'm not so pumped up about it, but I got to do it. And, you know, the problem with sort of a utopian outlook, which I might be guilty of sort of harboring a utopian notion of what if then, that's always a tricky one. My if then, or when I get, those are tough, because that means you think that there's a thing. And so, and I know it's very sort of, it's not profound, but it is profound. My dad used to say heaven is here on earth. And I never really asked him much about anything philosophical or what I know he liked, he liked to read a poem. We used to have him say grace, and he would definitely get poetic, bring up Jesus and stuff. But like, I never really asked him, like, okay, what do you mean by that, Daddo? And it's been uttered a million times, right? If heaven is not it's not like in the movies where you're on a cloud. Maybe it is. I don't know. We don't know, right? No one's come back to tell us. But what I think I'm going to interpret for myself is there's no getting there. Having the wherewithal to get new pictures, which is part of the process of working with your agent to update materials, to keep yourself fresh. A friend reaching out to do a reading, really enjoying that process, working with young actors, having this short film being booked on it, but it delaying, and finally get to do it, being inspired by the young crew. Like an exciting, I don't know if I shared a lot about what happened last week, but the idea that there's a director, a photographer I couldn't imagine her being anything but about 30. That means somebody wants to shoot on a beautiful camera, and someone learned how to, run the crew and how to get the gaffers to light and all of that craft. They don't want it to go away. Maybe the corporations who want to save money on the bottom line want AI films, but the dreamers, the kids this is where the generation gap doesn't really happen, because I was out of step with my generation, meaning not my generation, but my peers thought I was either they admired it or thought it was weird or mocked it. Who knew? But I was a declared actor in high school. So like when people say, oh, Gen X, this, that, or the other, I have more in common with these younger kids on a set because it's just the through line. It's who we are. And if you want to call it theater kids or drama nerds or whatever the hell, like it's the same sort of spirit across generations. The references may be different, the slang may be different, but there is plenty of young people who want this damn thing. And one of the AD was a younger cat. And I said to him, well, what do you think? And he goes, well, it's just like anything. You want to watch a cat video, but we also want to watch movies. So that is my hope. And then we were talking about films, older films that he was a fan of. Top 3 was Network. I'm like, this kid's cool. He said he went last time he saw it was in a theater, etc. I was like, oh, let's stay in touch and let's go to it. Basically, because you have to, if you want to preserve an industry, you got to put your butt in the seat, and that's all you can really do to participate in it. Because what happens is, on social media, you'll say, the reason we don't go to movies, I went to the movies and if somebody took out their phone. Yes, other people can be vexing, but the fun of it, the communalness of it, the dark lights, the fact that I at least am going to put my phone on fucking do not disturb for 2.5 hours or 2 hours. A lot of that, I didn't take a lot of pictures on set. I should have, because I don't have any pictures for social media, but I was in that reverent space of staying on set. If I were, we were supposed to like leave them in our trailer. We didn't have trailers, but I wouldn't have brought my phone on set. And so it was like almost like a reprieve from this screen time being on the set. I couldn't be on the set when I was doing the play reading. I'm phone. And it really does sort of these, and it really does reignite what's going on, what your sort of, your thing was. And it reminds you. So I guess the anxiety, the the what's next on the desk session in the hundreds of what, rather than that, what's next to talk about on the desk session. So I guess I have to, find another project, keep auditioning, maybe get one of my own off the ground. There's so many, I'm almost done with my website, but there's a few things I can't fix. And here's a question, if anybody ever listens and knows, like, I'm on a WordPress site and it doesn't go vertical. It doesn't optimize online. And that may be the template I chose, but I'm wondering if there's a fix for it so that it just it miniaturizes and then you can zoom in. Right now it just went vertical. And then when you go sideways, it goes, but it's not optimized for the phone, is what I'm saying. It looks really good on a desktop. And so that's a little bit of an inferiority to the older site that I got rid of. That one shrunk down. So I'm wondering if anybody knows, I'm going to call GoDaddy. Is there a setting that I can do that it'll like miniaturize and become web friendly on the phone? You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's not possible, which would be kind of a bummer to have it be less optimized 10 years after the 10 years after a crummy old site that they were telling me is obsolete, and this one's not doing the same things the old one did. Which is why the way I envision the hyperbole described by AI, it can't do miracles yet, right? And so because it can't fix it can't really fix things skeletally, right? It can't go back in and make Atari. It can't update Atari, right? But that, to me, is what, if it's such a thing, so there's always going to have to be patches, and there always has to be whether the human wants to update the widget, I'm off track. But I was really, I'm trying to like stay inspired by the experience on set, and to now sort of say, you know what, my body held up for those 48 hours, albeit with the aid of a lot of Advil, and I made it through. And so that stamina that Laurence Olivier spoke about, I understand the true nature of what is required, and its attention. It was also being prepared so that I wouldn't be neurotic about the lines. A funny thing is when I'll admit to being willful about trying to say some lines as if I learned them a certain way. But what happened is that we did it so many times that eventually, when he said, "Can you say it the way it's written?" it wasn't as hard to say. Meaning, I thought I was improving by doing it my way. But if you really, and this is where it goes back to like a lot of actors talk about how many times you got to read something. 100 times, I think, is Anthony Hopkins' thing. Because then, some people maybe want you to say it the exact way as written, and if it's, you have the only way to smooth it out is it to be integrated so that it doesn't sound odd and you're not judging it coming out of your mouth, and you can give him, you can give your director one take where it's according to the script. Because then you're going to find out that a lot of stuff has to match in the editing, right? And I'm not doing him any favors by saying it differently every single time, even though he wants me to improvise. And you'll see it. Certain scenes need that. It's really just bang out this husband and wife breakup scene. That the improvising comes in the sort of other moments where you can tell in the script that it's written as a sketch. But other scenes are like these things have to be communicated. And all of that great learning. And the beauty of it is to do it as many times and as often as possible so that every set dynamic doesn't throw you, but also that's the experience and the latitude you have in the indie end of things is access to the director of photography, the AD being approachable, the director, all of these things, asking about the lens, all this stuff, where you cutting it. I'm sure you can always ask, at a certain degree, but you never know. There may be such an assembly line thing that they're doing. You don't know what they're shooting. Room 104, they didn't shoot me from like above the shoulders. They cut my head off on purpose. It was like a scenario where it was like from the point of view of a teenagers whose parents were arguing, and so they became voices like in Charlie Brown. They were heard, not seen. So, you didn't know. But then again, there was a scene where I bent down to tie my shoes, and my face made it into frame. And I was like, so you just don't know everything, especially on the professional level, where what's happening. And if you're inhabiting a little bit your character and you have some latitude to move and the marks aren't that important in the master, things will you'll be like, how'd they get that? And so you get to learn a lot. And I'm very interested to see a certain scene in the script because I was aware I was in close and I wanted to sort of modulate for the close-up, but I also wanted to I was an extreme character, so I thought I could get away with some movement knowing the frame, but also like knowing that I could, you don't want to be thinking about it, but I just want to see if like I was really kind of cooking between the scenes, between the takes of like staying in it and also like letting the stuff affect me, but also having an organic reaction, but knowing that the camera was right here. You can you can really start to understand how to use the camera as the third eye, or the how do I put it? A participant, that it's between you and your scene partner, but also like that third participant, Sorry, it's really hot and I have to turn the AC off. Also, there were times when I was off camera, but like they wanted the exact angle, so the camera would be practically on my lap, shooting up over a couch, let's say, and the DP had to keep telling me to watch your hands because I was doing the lines on the other side of the scene and going in front of the lens and stuff. So that's another thing to learn, is like the over gesticulating could be it could be you're not connected, so you just start flailing. If it's unspecific, it's also going to throw off continuity if you keep doing it and you don't do it. And so it's better to be still. So I have to learn all that, and hopefully they can edit around that. But now I know, like, even if you're just sitting on a couch, like, because also when the problem was I was sitting on a couch for the whole first day, and it's hard to keep your energy up. So I'm just trying to like rev with hands to keep your energy, because there's an energy of playing like a slouch couch potato, but you can't play. That's not compelling. So you have to have an energy to play a low energy person, if you understand what I'm saying. It's the push and pull of being watchable or interesting versus like when you're truly alone and no one's watching you. My girlfriend calls it secret single behavior, like I don't want to share too much, but like if you go up to the air conditioning and you get your armpit dried off from the shower because you want the fan to cool down your sweaty armpit, like that's not something you want anybody to see. But that's also what acting is. If you can do it right, and the few times, hopefully more than a few times, it's happened in like the best note you could get from an acting coach or from a teacher in class, and certainly from the director or the crew or whatever, that what you're looking for is like, it needs to feel like you're seeing something you shouldn't. I'm thinking about like maybe Marriage Story. you're really watching two people fight, and it's the end of a break. It's like beyond a breakup. They're already broken up, and now they're going scorched earth, and you're just like, it's like hard to, I shouldn't be seeing this. It's basically you're having a private moment in public. So it's like being watched through a keyhole or watched through a wall. Like that's how natural and how like real I would also use like those. There's a few great scenes between Edie Falco and James Gandolfini when they're having it out. When they're having it out in the pool house, and she admits that she's been fantasizing about Furio. Like they're going for it, and it's like they're both so out on the edge of polite acting that you're like, holy shit, I'm watching two people really fucking go for it. And the beauty of that is it doesn't have to be wrought, and you don't have to walk off set bummed out that day, but you are there for that moment, and you can snap in and out. And I guess that's what sort of these maladies and anxieties, like I don't have to stay in it. The fear of FOMO or the embarrassment. The beauty of that Jeff Hiller talking about it is like, you know what, he wasn't embarrassed anymore. He knew he really wanted to do it, so you hung, and then it's like, on a Friday in the middle of August at my age, I'm chilling and doing funny improvs, and would I prefer to be in an office cubicle like putting reports together? Probably not. And I don't say that to disparage. I just that note that this is better than 9 to 5 is well taken, and again, that it's my choice. There's I think it's Too Big to Fail, or one of those HBO movies about the crash in '08, and all the CEOs of the big 5 banks, or I don't know how many there are, but all the guys who crashed the fucking thing with these swaps and these derivatives and these subprime mortgage bundles. Tony Shalhoub plays one of the guys. It's at the HBO movie. It's not The Big Short, but it's in that vein, and I like those. Those are like a lot of talking, a lot of guys in suits. I love that stuff. Usually a good script, but the guy's like stressed out there walking up the stairs to go talk to somebody, and the guy's like, Jesus, I can't believe we got to do this, like, because they're gonna get their ass chewed out by the Fed chairman or whatever. And Tony Shalhoub's like, relax, man. It's not storming the beaches at Normandy. And, that's really what it comes down to, And the one thing I would try to improve is it shouldn't have taken sort of this exemplary crew, and I had twisted myself into a pretzel about the whole thing. Back to what Jeff Hiller was saying, I was embarrassed. I didn't like what was sort of before me at this stage in my life, or I was nervous and processing it through an angry lens, and then cut to, okay, we're going to break for lunch, and there was like some really good Chinese food, and everybody on the crew was like, this was a good, I love when the camera operator's like, this is a good one, that means he's on set all the time, and it's like there's varying degrees of what's good lunch, and this was a good one, and we earned it, and you eat, and it just hits, and it was, and so all of that is, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it, right? That's the thing. But I feel like I did, in those heady days after drama school when it looked like, I wasn't gonna have to succumb to the support job, and I've made peace with it, and now, so it's more excitement, anticipation. What can I do? What's in my power to get to that next thing? Because the beauty of it also is like, however long it takes, but there may or may not be, there may be a chance to see a screening of it, and that'll be a reunion of sorts. And those are exciting things, and that's what a lot of people don't get to do in their day-to-day. You get the gold watch after 35 years, and, it should be more, but when you're in the movie business, each project is its own micro corporation, micro company, and however long the shoot is, and then once it's released and out, that's like sort of your retirement party. You're retiring that role, that project. But there's a few more than the average bear, and so I think that's what keeps you coming back and holding on. And there's some loneliness in there, and I guess counting my blessings in a true fashion, not with a hashtag blessed or hashtag gratitude. It's just really knowing it, knowing you never had a hard day in your life, and that everything else is just anxiety and neuroses and belly aching, and I think that is a powerful place to launch from, a powerful place to get to. I think that does become contagious, and so I think that's pretty much what I'm here to say on 103. Not much different, but maybe a bit of something feeling better, something feeling good. Reminding, not fixating on it, not living in the past, but knowing that, in your darkest days, there's another opening night, there's another table read, there's something always on the way, and rock and roll, man. Today, the song, I think last week's song was Troop from the New Jack Swing. Spread My Wings, another upbeat song. This week's song, it's very interesting just because of the way the algorithm and the playlist, how it's never the greatest hit that typifies a genre that I gravitate toward, and because it's probably just keeping track, it's a surprise to me, but I love freestyle music. Freestyle was big in the mid to late 80s. It came out of New York and some out of like Miami, Florida, like a lot of Latin artists, Puerto Rico, Stevie B being like one of the bigger names of freestyle. Lisa was like she was the real crossover. She was like the Elvis Presley of freestyle, because she kind of became mainstream and pop, but her origin is freestyle. Shannon with Give Me the Night and Let the Music Play were two of the biggest freestyles, and very much I think she's sort of the Little Richard of freestyle, like, and she's said that Lisa stole her sound, but a lot of it was the 808 drum machine and a lot of the same keyboard samples. So it had a homogeneous sound, but it had many different practitioners of it. And so the song this week is Sweet Sensation. Oh fuck, I'm blanking on the song. Not When I Hear Music. It's Sweet Sensation. Oh, I'm Hooked on You. Yeah, let's go. That's a jam. So I have a memory of going to an away game to play basketball in high school, and I don't know who the fuck, or maybe it was a field trip, so I don't know what coach would let us bump. I don't think we could have a boombox, but I think someone was on their headphones, and homie, our power forward, a varsity power forward, was singing out loud to I'm Hooked on You by Sweet Sensation. It's a maybe freestyle, but also kind of got like a crossover dance party like girl jam. But I'm Hooked on You is a very good track, very 80s, very 808, very, I don't know, it was just like, a very, I can't explain, it's a chick song. It's a very cool song. I'm Hooked on You. I'll put that in the description, because I guess I'm not doing the week before stringing you along. I'm putting it in the damn description week to week. So somehow I got backed up. But looking forward to next week. Hopefully got some cool stuff to report. Got to get wrapped up here because it's hot, and I'm going to use this heat to cut it short, if I even did. I never really look at the clock on these. So thank you, Death Session 103, Carl D. Peace.